first discovered KAI NAREZO when I was looking for flamenco guitar videos on YouTube. And I quickly pivoted to his own website, Flamenco Explained, and became a member when I saw how valuable and clear his lessons were. And when I got to Granada, I contacted KAI about the possibility of me taking an in-person lesson with him. And he responded right away and said no problem. And then he got in touch with me to let me know that one of his other students, Aso, was also studying at Escuela Carmen de las Cuevas, and that I should get in touch with him and that we should all of us go out for some drinks one night. So one night, KAI and his wife Tara took me and Aso out to a couple of tapas bars in his neighborhood. And the next night, they both invited us to a peña in Granada. And a peña is like a members-only club that has a flamenco show maybe every week or so. And the peña we ended up going to is one of the most famous ones in Granada. It's a beautiful place. And unfortunately, I couldn't record the actual concert, but I have a little bit of footage from walking around the grounds of the peña. And shortly thereafter, KAI invited me to take a lesson at his house. So I got to go out to KAI and Tara's house, and they just moved into a beautiful house out in the mountains, a little bit outside of Granada. And I got to see his studio and meet his famous dogs that had made a few appearances in some of his flamenco guitar videos. And KAI gave me over an hour-long lesson. We talked a little bit about his origins as a flamenco guitar player, and he ended up giving me a ride back to Granada. So I'm very fortunate to have met KAI and Tara, and I'm very grateful for what they did for me while I was studying in Granada. Tara actually had studied with Jorge, my teacher at Escuela Carmen de las Cuevas, in the past, so it's a small community of flamenco guitar players in Granada. So I want to share with you some of those experiences and my lesson with KAI. And if you're at all interested, even as a beginner, I recommend checking out his website, flamencoexplained.com. And to KAI and Tara, I just want to say thank you very much for your hospitality, and I look forward to seeing you next time I visit Granada. And like always, guys, don't forget, if you want to see more vlogs like this one, just click that subscribe button. Hey, Rocket. I just wanted to, ask you a little bit about how you got into flamenco guitar, because I know you've been playing, 30 years?
More than 30 years, yeah.
So how is it that you fell into flamenco?
Yeah, so I was playing in rock bands and stuff as a kid. It's probably like 15 when I first... So yeah, my origin story is watching The Odd Couple with my mom, and there's an episode where Roy Clark comes on and plays a malagueña on his steel string guitar.
I've seen that, yeah.
And my mom and I used to watch all the Odd Couple reruns, and I had, I heard that and I was like kind of blown away. So I grabbed my guitar and I was like, bum, 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 bum. Figured that part out, and I was like, Mom, what is this? And she was like, that's flamenco. I have a record. So we went to the records, and the record she had turned out to be Manitas de Plata, who is actually like a uncle or grandfather or something of all the Gypsy Kings guys. So he's one of these French gypsies who did rumba like in the 60s, and he was huge. And so that was the first time I heard the word flamenco, even though, whether or not he was really a flamenco guitarist is a whole thing. But from there, I started wanting to know more about flamenco, and so every time, this before the internet, obviously, so it's like we had a great record store in my town, so I would find some old records, and then my sister, of all people, introduced me to Paco de Lucía. She brought me a cassette, and I was, blown away. And so I played stuff that I thought was flamenco until, so I lived in New Jersey at that point, and then I went to college in New York. So when I moved to New York, I was like, there has to be a flamenco teacher in New York, and I found Dennis Koster, who was a student of Sabicas and Mario Escudero. Is an amazing teacher. And I studied with him for the 4 years I was in college, very seriously, and started playing for dance class way before I should have, in retrospect. But I just showed up and was like, you know, and the guys who were playing for the classes were fantastic, and the teachers yelled at me a lot. But so I just dove in while I was in college, just doing that really seriously. And then after college, I moved to Granada.
What brought you back to Granada again?
I lived in Granada in 1992, and then I had some years in the wilderness, and then I came back and lived here in 96. And that's when I decided I was like, if I'm going to do this for a living, I should learn how to read music and stuff. And so I couldn't really find a school that did what I wanted in Spain, so I went back to the States to go to Berkeley. That was 97. And so then I would come to Granada whenever I could between then. And then 2017, so I used to teach in the summers in California for CSU, California State University, had a thing called Summer Arts. And I would teach a flamenco workshop every summer. And then one year, the director of the guitar thing for Summer Arts said, hey, we have a chance to teach this in Spain. Do you have any thoughts about where we could go? And my friend Vicente Coves was just starting the Granada Guitar Festival. That was going to be the very first year. And I said, hey, so I told my boss at CSU about this. And he said, that sounds fantastic. And so they just worked it out. And it was supposed to be a one-off, where for 1 year, Summer Arts happened in Granada, and then we went back to teaching, at a CSU campus every summer. But it went so well that they liked it, and the mayor of Granada got super into it. He said, what do I have to do to make this happen every year? And they were like, that's not how it works. But he was like, what do you want? Do you want like free classrooms? Do you want free housing? Like, what can we give you to make this more attractive? And so he gave enough, and between that and Vicente Coves's, the Granada Guitar Festival, it all just sort of became very intertwined. And so we did that a couple years in a row. And then the pandemic hit. But so Tara and I were coming every summer and spending months, and we decided, let's get a house in Granada and spend half the year there. And then, at a certain point, we realized that all the extra money we made living in LA was spent on living in LA. So why not just come live here? We were supposed to come in May of 2020, but then the pandemic hit, obviously, and we ended up arriving in January of 2021 is when we actually got here.
The basic progression, D minor to C to B flat to A. We add in the secondary dominants. And then because we want this kind of ba-ba, so there's two things when you get to B flat you can do. You can just play any other B flat voicing, and it feels like you're moving towards the resolution to A. You can play the same voicing, but that's a little weird. So if you do, but very common to G minor 7.
How come you want like a low G? Like that doesn't seem like that would B flat. Like that would be the sixth. That would be like the. Why would you want that in the bass? That doesn't seem to make any. That's where. It makes no sense, right?
Well, except if you don't think about it as a B flat anymore. If you want to analyze this analyzes perfectly as a G minor.
G minor, okay.
Right, and G minor is how we resolve from below, right? So we normally resolve from above, half step down, but we can also resolve a whole step up, or right? So that's why that makes sense. But this also makes sense, right? With the fifth on the bottom. If you think about tangos, there's a lot of right, so that, por arriba, is this.
Tangos you kind of think of as eight beats, like for a compass.
I think of it as in 4, but yeah, I'm actually thinking of it as in 8. I just don't count up to 8. I count them in 4s, but you're right that you always want pairs. Yeah. Not wanting to pull more attention to any part of the compass, the basic default right hand, I would say, is this. Right? Then all the different variations of 6, 8, 10, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you have to get really used to. But because they all want to fit in the context of like, I just think that needs to be so strong as a default. So anytime, no matter where in the compass you are, you know what your hand should be doing. You know, either or you know, it should all be supernatural.
And I'm gonna rotate the.
Right, the whole hand's gonna go. So don't think about you're doing a little bit of this.
Yeah.
It's more of this. Everything goes. Yeah. Okay. I see what's slowing you down. Down, up, boom. You have to come up a teensy bit further because you're coming up to here, and then you have to come find the 5th string.
Yeah.
And move again.
Yeah.
That's an extra movement which you have to get rid of. So it has to be down, up, so that this. See, I'm exaggerating. I don't move this big when I really do my Sapua, but it's really. But I come up far enough that it's on my way back down that I hit the string that's the bass note, right? So a really good exercise is single string on Sapua. Part is kind of fine. It's finding the 5th string is what's messing you up. And then when you add a little bit of, but this is forces you to be contained, right? Because at first I think it's a great idea to exaggerate this because you want to get this movement. Alright, so back to tangos. I was thinking we should make up a good alzapua that's simple so you can work on it. So. Has a tendency to come up in places where it would be really more convenient for it to stay. See how you?
Okay.
Yeah, you're still coming up.
Well, also this one from Bulerias. So how do you transpose that to?
You don't really.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just not kind of available. So much of what we do in flamenco is like what lays well on the guitar.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't find direct transpositions. I mean, you could if you had to, you know.
But it's not going to be an easy move like that. It's gonna
and that would be like. It's actually a very easy transposition. It's just not a thing we play nearly as often when we're playing por arriba. Right? Technically, you got to take care of this thumb thing because it's messing you up a lot. What it's doing is it's pulling your hand away from the guitar instead of towards the guitar, and your thumb is spending a lot of time trying to find a note that it could find much more easily. So what you need to do is really work on your default breaststroke, right? So that when you're just playing a note for no reason, you want to play a rest stroke and not a free stroke. Right? It sounds different. Feels really different. It's just way more efficient, right? So it's like this thing I get into with people all the time. It's like it's not dogma. It's not like you have to do this because it's what we do. There's like a really good reason
for defaulting to a restaurant. So I would really work on this falseta because it's such a practical thing. Yeah, and actually your whole arm looks kind of good now. No, it's fine. Like I like it. Don't overdo it. What you were doing was good.
If any of my subscribers were interested in dipping their feet in the art of flamenco, what would you say for the total newbie approach, or any suggestions?
Well, shameless plug. I would say Flamenco Explained, flamencoexplained.com. We have a beginner course because this question comes up so often, and so we decided, okay, let's just make like the comprehensive. I've never played the guitar before, or I've never played flamenco before. It kind of works for either one. There's things at the beginning of the course that if you've never played the guitar before, you really want to know, and that you can skip if you already play guitar and you just are new to flamenco. And that, we designed the course to be everything you need to know to be able to learn flamenco. Like if you left Flamenco Explained after that course, you would have all the tools to watch YouTube and be informed about what you're learning. Because that's part of it, is that people, there's so much free content out there. It's not all good, and a lot of it is very good, but not necessarily the first thing you need to learn if you're new to flamenco. So the point of the course was to prepare you to go out into the world and keep learning.
Keep listening.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Kai.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.